Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. And today's episode is Bleach, Soul Society, the Sneak Entry Arc, Episode 29, Breakthrough, the Shinigami's Encompassing Net. Episode in a nutshell is a brief reminder of what happened in the episode. So the episode begins with Ishida defeating Jirobo, and basically the last 5 minutes of the last episode is repeated in the first 5 minutes of this episode. And after he has been defeated, Ishida and Inoue then continue on their journey. We then have Ganju running away from his crowd of Shinigami before Ichigo then comes around a corner with his crowd of Shinigami, and they meet in the middle. Ichigo manages to defeat some of the Shinigami, but not all of them. And we see that some of the Shinigami from the 4th squad, which is the healing squad, has set out to heal any wounded Shinigami that they come across. Meanwhile, Hentaro, who had gone to visit Rukia before, is kind of wandering about, sees the crowd of Shinigami kind of standing there, decides he's going to investigate why the crowd is gathered, and because he's clumsy, he ends up tripping. They end up pushing him through to the front, and he reaches Ichigo and Ganju, who then decide that they're going to use him as a hostage against the rest of the Shinigami to try to get them to let him go. But turns out the 11th squad, which is the ones that were chasing them, do not like the 4th squad as they see them as useless, and therefore they have absolutely no problem with Hantaro dying, and they're refusing to let the Ryoko through. So in the end, they end up having to prepare to fight. However, Chad then comes through the wall, which creates an opening for Ganju and Ichigo to run away. And then Chad comes through, having just missed them, and ends up facing the group of Shinigami that were originally going to attack Ichigo and Ganju. Meanwhile, Ichigo and Ganju then find themselves hiding in a building, and Ganju, just on instinct, apparently grabbed Hantaro to come and run with them, and then they start arguing over why did he grab this random Shinigami? He's obviously useless, blah blah blah. Until, of course, Hentaro hears Rukia's name and then tells them that he knows a way towards where the White Tower is. And then we also have Ikkaku, who has been taken to the 4th squad's headquarters to be healed properly, and at first Mayuri is interrogating him, and Ikkaku is playing dumb and saying, "Oh, I didn't even see my attacker. It happened so quickly. I have no information to give you, blah, blah, blah." And before Mayuri can do any damage, that is when Kenpachi arrives, quite by accident because they are completely lost, him and his lieutenant. But Ikkaku then does let him know that Ichigo is strong, gives him a description of what he looks like, and that he also suspects that he is still developing as a fighter, and so by the time Kenpachi may meet him, he might be even stronger, and this makes Kenpachi incredibly happy. So as he continues his search to try to find Ichigo so they can have a battle, he's smiling quite a bit, and that is where our episode ends this time. So now it's time to rank the episode, and as always we will be ranking on our mostly objective ranking list first, which uses set values to determine the score, followed by the personal ranking list, which is based on emotion. So starting with our mostly objective rank values, we only had 2 that applied. The first one was the resolved battle between Ishida and Jirobo, which occurred at the very start of the episode, and that was worth 2 points. And then we also had a multi-arc supporting character introduction, which was Yasuchika Iemura, who is part of the 4th squad and was leading a group towards basically where the fallen wrong series, Shinigami have basically been defeated by Ichigo and Co. which is worth 3 points because the character does appear in multiple arcs. However, it is not a very main character and it kind of has a bit part, so I was debating whether to include him in this particular episode score, but ultimately it was the first appearance of the character. He did have lines. He was on screen for, not a significant amount of time, but a short amount of time. And so I did decide to ultimately count it with 3 points, bringing this episode to a 5 out of 10. And so we now have our arc ranking so far for the mostly objective ranking. And in first, we have Enter the World of the Shinigami, The Man Who Hates Shinigami, Assemble the Gotai 13, Formation, The Worst Tag, 14 Days Before Rukia's Execution, Penetrate the Center with an Enormous Bombshell, Orihime Targeted, Release the Death Blow, and then this episode is currently in last place with Breakthrough, the Shinigami's Encompassing Net. And it's in last place because when more than one episode has the same score, we rank in episode order, and so far 5 is the lowest score that we've had. Bringing us now to the personal ranking. So, starting with the negatives, because we should get those out of the way. First negative, the first 5 minutes of this episode was complete deja vu to the last one. And I don't mind if they recap a little bit of the fight at the start of the episode to kind of remind us where we were, especially when this was originally airing and how I'm rewatching it now. There's about a week between each episode, so you may have forgotten exactly what happened. But I think they could recap maybe the last minute of the fight. They didn't have to do a full 5 minutes, a quarter of the episode, recapping or redoing exactly the ending of the last episode. I felt like that was excessive. And I honestly thought maybe I was watching the wrong episode and I was like, am I rewatching the episode I just finished? What is happening here? Complete deja vu. It was too much of that fight redone. Pretty much the entire fight from the start of when Ishida arrives was redone. It was too much in my opinion, and luckily on the personal list my opinion matters, so did not enjoy that. And then basically it was kind of, other than that, not a lot of plot progression yet. To be fair though, positives, we did get progression in that we've caught up to Shadow, who is very close to where Ichigo and Ganju are, but he does just miss them. And we do see some pretty cool blue spiritual power coming out of his arm, which is very aesthetic. We do get a little bit of comedy with the Ganju and Ichigo reunion, as well as the Ganju and Ichigo realizing that they dragged Hentaro along. And then we get plot progression in that Hentaro does offer, after hearing about Rukia, because he obviously has a connection to Rukia as he tried to go visit her but was declined, and probably does want her saved, he offers them a way to the White Tower that he knows of. And then we have, of course, the setup that Kenpachi is still looking for Ichigo and the comedy of him being completely lost. Though it does end up working out in his favor because now he's even more excited to meet Ichigo because Ikaku has told him about how strong Ichigo is and that he believes he's even going to become stronger. So there was plot progression, things being set up, but at the same time, it was basically an episode of deja vu, Ichigo and Ganju arguing, and then at the end we got some actual progression. So ultimately, I liked the episode. I did enjoy watching it because of the comedic aspects, but at the same time, I only gave it a 5 out of 10 because I did feel ultimately it was average as compared to some of the other episodes. So, that then brings our personal ranking to in first, Enter the World of the Shinigami, Formation, The Worst Tag, Penetrate the Center with an Enormous Bombshell, Assemble the sorry, Assemble the Kotai 13, 14 Days Before Rukia's Execution, Release the Death Blow, This episode for me was in 7th. Break through the Shinigami's encompassing net. Then we have The Man Who Hates Shinigami, and then in last place, Orihime Targeted. Bringing us now to the final segment, which is, of course, the series ranking so far, where we're going to be ranking each of the arcs against each other. And in our mostly objective ranking so far, Agent of the Shinigami arc ended with a score of 84%, and Soul Society, the Sneak Entry arc, so far has 71 points out of a possible 210. Meanwhile, on the personal side, Agent of the Shinigami arc earned a score of 63%, while the Soul Society, the Sneak Entry arc, so far has earned 50 out of a maximum possible 210 points. With that, we've now rewatched and ranked Bleach Soul Society, the Sneak Entry arc, episode 29, Break Through the Shinigami's Encompassing Net. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.